Hello, my name is Beth, and this is Identity Shift. Hello, and welcome to episode 6, Recalibrated. So I chose this word, although it is kind of maybe a technical word or a scientific word, because it means that an instrument of measurement has drifted away from its purpose. So again, I'm looking at my notes here. It's not measuring correctly, it's not true in some way. So it has to be brought back into alignment again with its true purpose. And it just seemed to me to be really appropriate if I think about my own journey and just my family of origin. I was blessed. I have a great family, a really supportive and loving family, but I still had to be on a journey of coming back into what I truly am intended to be, and also the truth about who I am, and not believing things that aren't true. So that's what I want to talk about today. But a little bit different from last time. Last time I was talking about reclaiming the identity God has for us. And this time I want to talk about being brought into alignment with our identity. And it's a little bit of a difference. So I'm using an example of adoption. And you probably have heard me say that I'm widowed. I lost my husband 8 years ago. But I'm also an adoptive parent. So I've come through a number of processes in adoption that are really, they've been life-changing for me. There's been a tremendous amount of joy. There's been a tremendous amount of challenge in all of that. But it's taught me so much about God and His ways and His path. So I just want to share some of that with you today.
But when the set time had fully come, God sent His Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Because you are His sons, God sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are His child, God has made you also an heir. Galatians 4:4-7, New International Version.
So today's passage it's just a beautiful description of how God moves us, how He moves us from believing we're slaves, we believe that we're downtrodden, we're not worthy, into being heirs of His promise, being His children, and really being the fulfillment of His desire. And that's really how I think we all want to believe that we are underneath it all, but that life experiences and things that happen teach us otherwise. So I'm hoping today that we can unpick this a little bit. I'm learning just as you are. I know that we're all learning together, but there's a lot that adoption has taught me. So first of all, I just want to tell you a little bit about my story. I was married in 1997, and my husband and I went on a very long, difficult journey through infertility. We were unable to conceive, and it was years and years of grief and years of quiet suffering. I think I persevered for so many years, it became who I was. I was just persevering through everything, and there was so much loss. And eventually I reached the point where I really knew that God was telling me that adoption was the way. And I waited for a little while for my husband to come on board. And finally, he just said, I'll come with you. So I struggled with that a bit. I really wanted us to be in unity on that, but he did come on board. So we had 2 girls come to live with us 10 years ago, and our intent was to adopt them, and we would be a family of 4. It was quite a difficult transition. For one thing, the children were 12 and 8, so they'd already been through a lot, and we were completely inexperienced. So I remember just feeling like I have no idea at all how to handle this situation. I am telling everyone that I'm mom, but the last thing I feel like is a mother. I don't feel like a mother. I feel like someone's going to come and just tap me on the shoulder and say, okay, you're good now. I'll take over. Never happened though. And in the midst of this, after about a year and a half, my husband died of suicide. It was a very sudden and shocking death. So in the midst of all that we were handling and dealing with, more trauma appeared. And it was such a shock to me and so traumatic for me, in the middle of all that we were trying to build with these children. It was devastating. And then a few months later, I decided it was time. I needed to proceed with completing the adoption. And the process here, where I live, is that the children, if they're over the age of, I think, 8, they have to go to a lawyer and they have to sign a document saying that they consent to be adopted. So that was quite a nerve-wracking and difficult process, particularly because I knew the older child was not well situated. She wasn't secure. And in fact, she chose not to consent to be adopted. So that then sent us into another process of separating, because I chose not to pursue her, not to wait any longer. I had been through so much with her. I had done everything I could do, and I was completely at the end of myself. So she returned to foster care, and it was one of those decisions that anyone could judge me. It was the hardest decision I think I've made in my life. Ultimately, it was the decision that I made. So there I was with an 8-year-old who just lost her daddy, who had been her daddy for 15 minutes, and I had just watched her sister leave as well. And we were just kind of staring at each other in the ashes of the burnt out house, or if you want to go back a couple of weeks, the bridge that had just smashed out of the middle of our lives. And what we were left with, who are you? So out of that place, we built a family. It's not the family that I dreamed about. I had to let go of my dream, which was really hard. To be honest, it still hurts. But we built a family. So I now have a daughter who is my daughter. It's legal, it's official, but what matters most is that she adopted me. And that was my learning, was that adoption is a two-way street. So the first thing I learned is that I adopted her, but she adopted me. And so it's the same with God. When he reaches out to us and he invites us, he doesn't force us to do that. We have to decide out of our own free will, yes, I accept you, or no, I'm not interested. And we all know that. But when I saw it in the context of adoption, and when one child rejected my love and the security of our home and the family that we were offering, and the other child embraced it, it was heartbreaking and it was joyous at the same time. I think probably the most extreme emotions that you could imagine were going through my mind at the time. The other thing that I learned about with adoption is that our name changes. So I started being called Mum fairly soon, fairly early on. And even just because it was easier at the school that I was Mum, although they were using quotes around my name. I was adoptive mom, I was fake mom for quite a while at the school, even years after I had transitioned from being fake mom to you really are my mother. You're mothering me and I accept that. So that exchange took place. But at first, when I was being called Mom, I didn't feel like that. I felt like I was a babysitter or a jailer, to be honest. And then my daughter changed her name as well. She had to learn how to spell it. She had to learn to answer to it. And she changed her name long before she was officially legally adopted. So it was an adoption from her heart first. Ultimately, it was the externals that were adopted first. Her name changed before she changed. Then the second step was, I adopt you because you're all I've got left. And then the third and final piece was the legal and formal adoption. So we learned a lot about how God processes with us. When the time has fully come, it said in the passage, fully come. And I know, and you know, there are so many times that I'm thinking, come on, let's get going. I want to get on with this. And God's saying, time's not full yet. It's not complete. We're not at the fullness. We're not there. The other piece is the waiting. The waiting is so hard. The persevering is so hard when your heart is engaged and you're waiting and you're hoping and you're disappointed over and over. That's so hard. And I learned that in adoption, waiting on the fullness of time. But God knows. I know that. I don't always feel that. It's very hard. The other thing is the name change is still an external. So the internal process of change still has to take place. And that, like I said, was a movement. It was a movement gradually from I've lost everything and you're all that's secure and I'm not going to mess up this. So here's my daughter doing what she believes I need to keep her good thing going, to keep herself secure in the home, to not upset me so that I wouldn't kick her out, because I'm sure it looked to her like I kicked out her sister, even though the process was a lot more complicated than that. But it was also, I'm going to be a good girl, I'm going to behave well, I'm going to do everything that would please you so you're happy with me, even though in my heart I'm experiencing all these other feelings. And it was kind of like coming to a place of I'm safe enough now to really be who I am. And that's the internal journey of moving from my name's changed to I'm a daughter and now I'm safe. And then the final process was actually being a daughter, and actually some of the mess comes out at that point. And so now that I'm a real mom, I get yelled at, and I get, I do get some of the behaviors that birth parents get because I'm a real mom. I'm as real as you're going to get. I've been through the wars with this kid, and I would do anything for this kid, and she knows it. And I have laid my life on the line for her, not literally, but figuratively many times. I've gone to bat for her. I fought for her. I fought with her. And that is what God does. He fights for us. He fights with us. He fights on our side. He surrounds us. He protects us from a distance if we don't want him near us. But he never, ever leaves us. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as I have breath in my body, I am going to be a mom to that kid. I'm not going anywhere. That's that. So what do we do with this? How does that change me? Adoption is a process of heart. It's a legal process as well, and it gives me a legal right to be an heir. Everything I have is my daughter's now. So she has a legal right as my heir. She will inherit everything because she's my daughter. It's her legal right. So we inherit because we are adopted and we're part of the family, and it's a full entering in. It's not just a partial one. It's everything. You leave nothing behind. Nothing's on the table. I think for me, the lesson was that I had two children in my home, and one of them became a daughter and the other could not become a daughter. She could not accept or trust. She was not able to move from a place of real hurt to a place of trust with me. And I had not hurt her, at least not initially. I made a lot of mistakes. There's things I've done that I regret or I feel guilty about. But ultimately, it was other people in her life that had damaged her to the point where she could not trust me. And I also had my own hurt and my own fear. That was knocking. There's a lot of layers to this, but really what I want to say today is that adoption is a picture of our mutual acceptance with God of our true identity in his family, of taking our new name and of assuming the mantle of being an heir and laying hold of our inheritance.
I'm going to give you a little homework for this week. Don't worry, it's not too hard and there's no marks. Before you start, just take time to quiet your mind, make the list of the things that are going to distract you, and ask the Holy Spirit to speak to you. Grab a pen or pencil and a piece of paper and draw 3 large circles. Make sure there's enough room that you can write inside each circle. In one circle, write words you use to describe yourself. In the second circle, write words others have used to describe you. In the third circle, ask God to tell you how he sees you. Look at the first 2 circles again and cross out each word that God has changed or removed from your life. Read out loud the words God has spoken over you. You're adopted. You're loved. You belong. Just take a few moments in this space just to let them soak in. He may even speak more to you. Write it down. Know you're loved.
So today I bless you and I pray for you. I pray that you would receive the spirit of adoption. Even if you have an amazing birth family, I pray that you would be able to step into adoption as a child of the living God and understanding not his sacrifice as much as his desire for you, his desire to have a family with you, and his desire to be named by you as your father, as your family. So I just bless you today too for healing. If your family of origin, your birth family, has been damaging to you, has crippled you in any ways, then I just bless you to be healed in all of those areas, and that God will not stop. He will not leave you until everything is completed. Continue to work out your salvation because it's so worth it. And he is so good and so faithful. So where does this leave us today? And where does it leave me? In some ways, I have stepped into this fully, and in other ways, not even close. So I really believe that there are layers. I believe that there's a process of steps, and we're always walking. So I want to grow today, and I bless you to grow today too. I'll see you next time.